3 months later, and the passing of Red Bull's co-founder Dietrich Mateschitz still haunts their walls. He was such a vital part of the organization that Red Bull's special advisor Helmut Marko admits to feeling the burden in Mateschitz's absence. "I'm missing him a lot. This is the second heavy loss. The first was Niki Lauda, with whom I was friends with and worked for decades. It's getting more difficult. You have to make the decisions alone. You no longer have the opportunity to exchange ideas at the same level. Whenever there were problems, he saw a solution. He was never destructive. He was always forward-thinking, optimistic, and he gave all the people opportunities. Not just here at Red Bull, and believed in projects and encouraged, radiated confidence. Even at our last meeting. That was at Lake Wolfgang in September together with Max Verstappen. It was a very long meeting." Marko also recalled how he used to call Mateschitz after every race, saying, "There is a certain emptiness, and initially these 5 minutes and this summary were missing immediately after a race. You have to see how you can overcome it or how you can cope with this situation." Dietrich Mateschitz passed away on October 22 last year from pancreatic cancer. The entire sporting world mourned his death, given Red Bull's impact on extreme sports. But they have to keep moving forward, and Oliver Mintzlaff is ready to fill the shoes left by Mateschitz. Marko, although still very much affected by the death of his friend, is prepared to keep going as well. I had a long conversation with Oliver Mintzlaff, the new person responsible for our Formula One project. It was a very constructive conversation. The next one will follow soon. And among these discussions may have been related to the possible return of one of the greatest to ever grace the track. Marko wants the recently retired 4-time world champion Sebastian Vettel to make his way back to Red Bull, where he won all 4 of his championships, the first of which made him the youngest to ever do so in Formula One history. Only this time, instead of being behind the wheel, Seb will be behind a desk in a managerial role for the team. "We know how this works," Marko said. "We know he is an open-minded, intelligent man. One of his arguments for quitting was his family life, and if he got into a managerial position, that would involve as much effort, as much traveling as he had now." Marko also mentioned that he didn't want to pressure Seb, saying the decision is entirely up to him, and since Vettel has not made any decisions yet, his future position in the team remains to be seen. But he has had discussions with Marko last 2022 about what they can do for each other, so it may only be a matter of time before we hear from him. Excited? Well, hang on to your seat, because there's a lot more going on in Red Bull. Right now, we might be witnessing the start of a proper feud between team principal Christian Horner and former American F1 driver Michael Andretti. After FIA President Mohammed Ben Sulayem explored the possibility of adding a new F1 team in the mix, Michael Andretti was quick to answer the call, gaining the favor of General Motors to form the Andretti Cadillac team. Andretti believes that with the support of a massive corporation like General Motors, he can get the team on the grid by 2026 at the latest. However, Andretti's desire to bring an 11th team to Formula One was met with opposition from some teams, most notably Christian Horner, who had not so nice things to say about Andretti Cadillac's possible inclusion in the sport. "Look, Andretti is a great brand, a great team. Mario, what he did in Formula One, as an American as well, is fantastic. Obviously, GM with Cadillac as well would be 2 phenomenal brands to have in the sport, and I don't think that there can be any dispute about that. As with all these things though, it ultimately boils down to, well, who's going to pay for it? And you can assume that the teams, if they're perceived to be the ones who are paying for it, or diluting their payments to accommodate it, of course it's not going to sit that well. The 2 teams that are supporting it, McLaren and Alpine, either have a partnership in the US with them, or are going to supply them an engine. The other 8 are saying, well hang on, why should we dilute our element of the prize fund? Horner appears to be speaking for every team, save for McLaren and Alpine, when he expressed his concern over the prize fund taking a hit with a new team being introduced to F1. Andretti, on the other hand, is disheartened by the hostile reception of his proposed team's potential entry, and he had a few words to say himself, going as far as to accuse the other teams of being greedy. It's all about money. First, they think they are going to get diluted 1/10 of their prize money, but they also get very greedy thinking we will take all the American sponsors as well. It's all about greed and looking at themselves and not looking at what is best for the overall growth of the series. With the amount of tension boiling between Andretti and Horner, only time will tell how this issue will pan out. But the real question is, Why has Christian Horner, of all people, been so vocal about this? A conflict of interest, perhaps? This might be the case, as rumors of a partnership between Red Bull and Ford have been swirling ahead of the team's livery launch on February 3 in New York City. F1 reporter Vincenzo Landino went on Twitter and said, "I have word from some of my contacts that Ford is sending some content creators and influencers to NYC on the same date. Coincidence?" To add fuel to the rumors, Ford themselves have gone on record to say that the sport's sudden surge in American popularity has had them thinking about a return, but they've been rather secretive about their plans for the future, and when Motorsport.com asked Ford performance boss Mark Rushbrook about a possible re-entry into Formula One, he kept his lips sealed, saying, "We don't comment on speculation, but it's the same with all these series that are out there. It's our responsibility to study them and understand them, and then make decisions on whether it makes sense or doesn't make sense." And with Audi entering the scene just in time for 2026, a year that brings new power unit regulations, it isn't a stretch to say that other manufacturers may be getting involved as well. So what do you think? Will Seb be making a comeback to the sport that he loves? Will the bad blood between Andretti and Horner make its way to the grid? We'd love to hear from you in the comments. And while you're at it, hit that subscribe button and turn on the notification bell to stay ahead of the curve.